All right, we have had quite a number of people joining us today. Good morning, good evening, or good night to everyone listening and watching. Welcome to this youth-led site event on youth participation during COVID-19 during the UN Commission for Social Development. It is an event co-organized by the youth delegates of Germany, Finland, Netherlands, Peru, Romania, and Switzerland, further the EU delegation and the permanent missions of Germany and Switzerland. My name is Paul Clara. I'm one of the German UN youth delegates, and I'm happy to share the moderation today with my Dutch colleague.
Thank you, Paul. I am Manon. Nice to meet all of you, and I am the Dutch United Nations Youth Representative on Human Rights and Security. And Paul and I will both guide you through this event today. Just a short announcement beforehand, this event is live broadcasted on Facebook and will be recorded. So welcome to everyone following us online too. As we're not able to meet physically, we are inviting everyone to send questions via the chat or in a Facebook comment. The chat box will be moderated continuously.
Thanks to digital tools, we were able to conduct an online survey, which we circulated on our social media during the last 2 weeks. No less than 420 young people from around the world shared their views with us. So stay tuned for the results, which we will display and discuss with our 5 excellent panelists. Before introducing them, we will hear some welcoming remarks.
And the first welcoming remark will be from our other youth delegates, because they would like to address you. They are briefly talking about the severe impact of the pandemic on youth and the chances of youth inclusion. So enjoy.
Thank you, Mona and Paul, for your kind and welcoming words. It is my great honor to welcome all of our distinguished guests today at our side event, Improving Youth Participation in Times of COVID-19. Together with all of my colleagues from around the globe, we've tried to work in order to create this side event that focuses on something that is very dear to us, youth participation. In the past couple of months, we've seen that the COVID-19 crisis was too often used as an excuse to make us effectively voiceless. We as young people do not understand that even in times that are so important like now, we do not have a seat at the table. If you look at our logo, you see that we're trying to create a seat ourselves, a seat that we, the young people of the world, have created. And today, our panelists will explain to us how we can make sure that this temporary seat will be permanent in the future. I hope you enjoy.
Depression is one of the most prevalent disabilities and impacts on academic and work performance. The ILO survey report on youth and COVID-19 2020 evidences that 50% of young people are possibly affected by anxiety or depression, while 17% are probably affected by them. Moreover, suicide is the second leading cause of death in young people. This is why we urge governments to invest in mental health by ensuring its availability throughout the whole national territory and promote outdoors activities without gatherings. Furthermore, a lower mental well-being is associated with perceived greater impact on youth rights, such as the right to leisure, public affairs, religion, information, privacy, housing, safety, and legal support during the restrictions. This affects mostly youth in low-income countries and showcases the need to implement comprehensive policies to tackle the pandemic, but protecting young people to avoid posing a negative impact on their rights.
The pandemic has disrupted the education of more than 70% of youth. This has, in particular, obscured the prospects of young people who are unable to study remotely. The education of youth must be supported by providing young people with alternative learning opportunities and increasing investment in digital solutions across education. Globally, 178 million young people were employed in sectors hit hardest by the pandemic, and over 40% have reported a reduced income. In many countries, young people, and especially young women, work in the informal economy and are therefore easily excluded from the support provided by society. What we need are targeted policy measures, such as reintegrating youth into the labor market and providing insurance benefits that cover specifically young people.
The inclusion of youth perspectives is crucial in order to come up with solutions that are widely accepted, resilient, and sustainable. Through active and meaningful participation, young people are empowered to play a vital role in their own development as well as in that of their communities. This may take the form of broad consultations, cooperation with and funding of youth-led and youth-focused organizations, or the inclusion of youth representatives in state delegations. Most of all, vulnerable and marginalized communities must be given the opportunity to speak out.
The young people have continued to reach out their helping hands, volunteering and supporting in multiple sectors of society, as a proof of their dedication for the present and the future common good. Nevertheless, the youth has a long way to come before being rightfully represented at the decision-making tables.
We must give our generation the chance to play an active role in rebuilding society, recovering after the pandemic, protecting the planet, and working towards the realization of the 2030 Agenda.
With this event, we want to raise awareness for the chances of including young people, their expertise, and perspectives into decision-making regarding the pandemic. We welcome all of you here today and are very keen to know about your opinions and experiences regarding the topic. Thank you for your participation. Enjoy the site event.
Thank you very much to our fellow youth delegates, and we are now delighted to invite the German Deputy Permanent Representative. Your Excellency, Ambassador Sauter, you have the floor.
Dear Paul, dear Manal, it's a real pleasure to be with you here. I wish I could personally welcome all of you to New York, but we need to do it this way. A big welcome to everybody here. We really need you folks. I brought the Charter of the United Nations with me this morning. In the first sentence, it speaks about the succeeding generations. I guess that's you folks. This is who the United Nations are geared to. At the same time, the United Nations are an organization run by states. And in practical terms, that means they are run by guys with ties. I'm speaking about people like me. So this is about the relationship between you and me. And I think the relationship should be very simple. I need people like you to kick my butt. This is actually a helpful experience in two ways. First of all, it makes me understand what is really important for the succeeding generation. And secondly, I can take the energy of your butt kick and put it into the negotiations that we have on our tables. This is indeed very important. It's particularly important now. We don't only need you, we need you guys now. The discussion on COVID has focused almost exclusively on the medical side so far. And of course, the risks that elderly people are confronted with have played an important role. But as the pandemic moves on, we start to understand the devastating effect that COVID is having on this succeeding generation, on you folks. This is why this issue needs to be put on the table, and nobody can do it better than you can. This is why I'm very serious when I say, welcome to New York. These are your United Nations. We need you to help us make sure that they really work in the interest of you guys, of the succeeding generation. And let me finish by saying, when I look into all these faces in front of me, I have no doubt whatsoever that we will do a good job together. Best of luck and welcome to New York.
Thank you very much, Mr. Sauter, and thank you so much for recognizing us, for recognizing youth and their rights to participate. Next to the German and the Swiss permanent mission, the EU delegation to the UN has been helpful in organizing this event. Your Excellency, Mr. Ambassador Gonzato, you may present your opening remarks.
Hi, Paul and Manal. Hi, everybody. And I love Gunther because he always speaks very clearly, not beating about the bush. And he's saying exactly what I feel as well. Let me say that I'm very happy that we are hosting you. We're not hosting you as you would like. Normally, we would like to see you all interacting together in the same room. I hope the next year we will be able to do that. Let me also just say that this is not a one-off thing for the EU. We've been making the support to youth, the interaction with youth, one of the red threads of our foreign policy. I remember when I was still in Brussels, we were promoting, dialogue and meetings between European youth and youth from the Southern Mediterranean. Between European youth in the EU and in the Eastern Partnership countries, so Ukraine, Moldova, Armenia, Azerbaijan, and so on and so forth, and between European youth and African youth. And in particular, on those occasions, I always felt that there was something missing. We were facilitating dialogue, people could exchange experiences, but it was all about advocacy and little agency. And I think what young people expect is agency, is being able to take things in their own hands and make proposals and turn these proposals into action. It's very much what came up from a campaign that we conducted together with the African Union and UNICEF, where 450,000 young people between 14 and 35 shared their thoughts, on how the EU should interact with Africa and so on and so forth. And so many said that, their problem was that they had no way to communicate with policymakers. There was no channel of communication. And that is extremely frustrating. So I'm happy to say that, for example, in the EU, we've created a youth sounding board. It's the commissioner in charge of developing policy that is doing that. And is really there to ask young people, do you think we're doing the right thing in pursuing this kind of policy in this country, and so on and so forth. So it's really about but asking young people for advice, for their experience. Because I have to say that we old folks, as Gunther was saying, we haven't got a clue many times. We don't have your creativity. We don't have the skills, the digital skills that you guys have. So I think it's really important to give you that opportunity to contribute to reflection and policy making. Some of you, I think he was the Finnish colleague, was talking about the digital divide. I think COVID-19, I need not tell you that has been really hard on those that had no access to digital meals, that they had no access to online platforms. They really felt cut out, and they're really robbed of their future. So I think it's extremely important to bring into our discussions here in New York the youth perspective. We should not leave you behind in that respect. And I think whenever I talk to people that are living the lockdown, that are living the sort of social distancing measures these days, I think nobody suffers more than young people, because socialization, I remember when I was younger, socialization is really so much important. It's part of growing up, it's part of becoming adults. So we're here to try and help you. Let's turn this huge challenge that we are all experiencing into an opportunity. I think we can do that, but in order to do that, we need your dynamism, we need your creativity, we need your fresh look at the world. So thank you very much, everybody. I'll be listening to your discussions, and again, so happy to have you here with us today.
Meaningful words. Thank you very much, Ambassador. We are very thankful for all the support and your kind cooperation. We hope that today we can, in fact, provide a channel for communication, as you mentioned, Mr. Gonzato. We will therefore now open up the panel discussion and introduce you to our wonderful panelists joining us today. Please welcome with us Ms. Bettina Bunchos, who is head of the Department for Children and Youth at the German Federal Ministry for Family Affairs, Senior Citizen, Women and Youth.
We are further delighted to have Ms. Shatta Sarif with us, who is an SDG Young Leader at the Office of the Secretary General's Envoy on Youth, and who is an influential human rights activist from Liberia.
Joining us from Peru, we welcome Ms. Sabrina Segovia-Lira, who is General Secretary and Undersecretary, and Secretary at the Lima Central Metropolitan Council for Youth Participation.
And we also welcome Ms. Luzanda Magwape, who empowers youth as founder of the Dream Factory Foundation in South Africa.
And finally, representing African youth, we are happy to have with us Ms. Petrida Paul, who is a member of the Youth Advisory Council of the African Union. Welcome.
Well, what an exciting team of experts on youth we have as panelists today to start our discussion with. We have divided today in three major parts. In the first segment, we'll be addressing the severe impacts of the pandemic on youth, and we will then briefly outline some ways in which youth contributed to countering the pandemic. Lastly, and most importantly, we will discuss steps towards more meaningful youth participation. And we would like to ask you first, Sabrina, as a young person, how has the pandemic impacted you the most?
Thank you, Manal. Hi, everyone. I am glad to be here. Well, I think that one of the main areas in which the pandemic has affected me was at the level of my mental health. I experienced increased levels of anxiety and stress. The process of readjustment to virtual-only environments was so complicated at the beginning. Now having physical contact with friends, living together with all my family was and still challenging. Balance all the activities, including the distribution of house chores, childcare, work, studies, and self-care was too difficult. On the other hand, another area that was very impacted in my life throughout the first semester of the past year was related to work, as very change to do remote work had particular implications. The schedules were so unpredictable that sometimes I could have an activity all days or on weekends. We had to deal with the idea that at some point a colleague would be infected by COVID-19 and we would have to readjust everything. At that moment, I feel that I didn't have enough time for activism and studies, and it felt oversaturated. And at this point, I decided to change my job for my self-care. I had the privilege of being able to do that. Unfortunately, many young people don't have it. Some friends told me that they would drop certain subjects at university because of the economic issues, or some of them had stopped studying to find a job in order to help their families, and others lost their jobs. The pandemic has affected young people in different ways. It made worse a reality that already existed, and it showed with emphasis inequality, rights violation, gender-based violence, domestic violence, limit access to sexual and mental health care, and more. We need to continue putting efforts to reverse these situations. Thank you.
Thank you for your perspective, Sabrina. Thank you for sharing it with us. We can definitely agree that young people were affected in very many different areas. And Ms. Petreider, before we continue to you, and before we look at how our survey participants generally rated the impact on youth, we would like to ask you how the African Union responded to the crisis for youth and how the Youth Advisory Council contributed to reducing the impacts.
Thank you so much, Manal, and thank you, Paul, and all excellencies who took part in the welcome remarks. So ideally, I'm from the Office of the African Union Youth Envoy, and what we did, actually, we reacted. During the COVID-19 pandemic at its climax last year, we established the Africa Youth Front on COVID-19. So it was a youth platform where all young people from different institutions within Africa actually came together to develop different strategies on how best they can respond to COVID-19. And through the leadership of Her Excellency, Commissioner El Fadil, we managed to actually work with the Africa CDC to develop different policy brief papers, but also provide different support to young people who needed some sort of financial assistance to that, et cetera. But also mainly what we did is to advocate for other issues. Since COVID-19 had highly risen to a really high climax and it was the world's center of attention, a lot of health issues were left behind. Health issues such as malaria, health issues such as neglected tropical diseases, and others. So what we did is to find better mechanisms on how best we can collaborate with other young people from different areas to actually advocate for other health issues, but also other emerging issues such as peace and security within the African continent. So I would say majorly we did a lot of virtual consultations with different young people who are actually working from grassroots level on how best we can provide support through their governments and through different platforms in general.
Wow, this sounds very impressive. In fact, we have asked youth worldwide to tell us in what areas they feel the pandemic has impacted them the most. More than 400 young people responded. So let's have a closer look at what they said. We are sharing the results here, and what we can clearly identify is that not less than 58% of young people feel their mental health and general well-being affected. Almost 2/3 miss out on youth exchanges and international experiences, and more than half of the respondents indicated an impact on their education and on their employment opportunities.
Ms. Sotte, could you maybe explain a little bit what you think it means for young people?
I think for many young people, COVID-19 has had an immense impact on their mental health, like you saw in the survey, on education and youth exchange programs, and in different aspects, even activism. So from the way COVID-19 started, we were not all prepared for, COVID taking all of us by storm. I know a lot of young people like myself who are from Africa don't have access to mental health services. We live in community where access to resources is still a major problem. Education for a lot of young people in my country, Liberia, during the COVID-19 crisis, when a lot of young people were going to school and, school systems were like adjusting, going to online programs and everything. We didn't have the resources. A lot of young people had to stay at home. So just talking to a counselor if you feel overwhelmed or something. I'm sure in other, countries like Europe and stuff like that, it's not just, an African thing or a Liberian thing. Other young people were also facing similar issue with not being in control of what was happening to them. And even right now, I mean, when you want to talk to someone because there are all these restrictions in place and everything, it's just a lot for a lot of young people. And even, youth exchange programs and everything. Like now we should be in New York having this conversation, connecting with each other and sharing that youthful energy and everything. We can do that because of COVID. So what it means for us, it means now we got to adjust ourselves. We got to, confront the new normal with though it's a challenge, but we got to do what we have to do. And I think for us as young people, we got to be resilient. And I know a lot of young people that are, doing great during this crisis. They are engaging their communities and finding ways and opportunities for other young people. So young people are starting mental health programs to, to reach out to a lot of young people who don't have access. But it's still a challenge when it comes to mental health services, when it comes to access to education for a lot of young people. It's still a challenge for the youth exchange program. You can travel easier right now because of COVID, but we got to be resilient. We got to continue to engage and reach out. Let's continue to use, social media and other internet-related services. And in communities where it's very hard, I know this is a challenge, and other young people don't have access to internet and stuff like that. We just got to continue to engage locally and do what we have to do, like I said, but use the available resources and the youth structures that are already in your communities and stuff like that.
So there's obviously a lot to cope with for youth. You've mentioned access to mental health services, resilience, engaging in local communities. Lusanda, turning to you, how can we as young people deal with all these negative impacts? What kind of support might help us?
Hi, everybody. It's such an honor. I'm joining you from the beautiful country of Botswana. I think for me, as a young person, I had to make a choice, did I want to be at the forefront of the change, or did I want to be responsive, given that I'm now in a situation where I'm necessarily being told what to do and where. And I think for me, if I reflect on myself, what has given me the ability to stand in this time, I think number one has been the ability to take advantage of technology in a way that appreciates community. You know, and the ambassador mentioned that socialism, being in groups, being able to engage as a young person is very, very important to us. And so staying in touch with the people you love, like for example, even in our family, you know, we start Sunday prayer sessions, and just to check in, you know, the simple phrase checking in is at the forefront of these times. You know, it's actually serious. Like, you need to check in on people, and it's just going back to the simple things of checking in, but also just being sensitive to where people are at the moment. Like, for example, I'm organizing our own webinar tomorrow, and the panelists I've engaged, I've asked them, you know, do you have data to be able to join? And just a simple act of saying, okay, I'm going to send you the data you need to be able to connect. I think it's important in these kinds of engagements. Otherwise, we're talking to ourselves and the normal people that are in the table. And, you know, if you look at the move of these topics of youth engagement, you know, I remember attending a conference in Jordan on youth extremism, and being familiar with attending so many conferences, for the first time, we were engaging with other youth. By other, I mean not the typical youth who has a certain lingo used to be. There was such concerted effort to make sure that other youth voices, whether it be refugees or from rural communities, were being bought that plane ticket to be able to come, you know. And so I think it's just about really taking a step back and saying, what are the simplistic things that people are requiring right now? What are the things that we can really engage young people on at a simple level before we strike at the high level? And I think from there, I think that's what COVID is forcing us to do, to go back to the basics and work ourselves from there.
Thank you, Ms. Lisander. Thank you for your perspective. We're going to be turning to the German Youth Ministry. Ms. Bunches, please share with us your perspective on the results. Did they surprise you? For example, the severe impact on mental health, and what do you believe governments and institutions can do in order to acknowledge the disproportionate effectiveness of young people, and how can they mitigate the short and long-term effects?
Hello, everybody. Thank you very much for the invitation, and great pleasure for me to be here with you today. Thank you for your questions and these important issues. We really live in times of a medically justified exceptional situation, which has required far-reaching measures and has brought massive restrictions in daily life. In particular, young people all over the world have been extremely limited in their natural development, in their striving for autonomy by the COVID-19 lockdown. Therefore, it was crucial for Germany to focus on concrete solutions to support young people and to facilitate their situation. Nationally, we have already adopted a range of measures to support young people. We ask, how can we help them? For example, one of our very early measures was to expand existing online counseling services and telephone hotlines, which are available for young people and also for their parents. And the user statistic has shown that there was a substantial increase of the demand, and it's still going on. We also support young people's institutions since the beginning of the pandemic situation. In Germany, we benefit from a great variety of non-profit facilities offering overnight accommodation for young people. To maintain this nationwide infrastructure, we provide massive financial support in 2020 and in 2021, compensation operation cost deficit caused by necessary restrictions. We are sure that we definitely need these houses for young people, and further places for youth work for the time after COVID-19. Young people are hungry for events and excursions, for discussions and joy with each other. We know from recent studies that many young people are currently under the impression that their concerns do not count in the ongoing crisis. Many of them feel that they are not seen and that they are not heard in political decisions making. In particular, they do not want to be reduced on their function as pupils, their function as workers, their function as people who learn and develop. They want to play an active role in shaping the issues that are relevant for them. Many young people believe that the political participation of young people in areas that affect their personal lives must be guaranteed even in time of crisis. The pandemic has made one thing very clear. We are all in this together because COVID-19 does not stop at borders. It does not stop at generations. To end the pandemic, we need solidarity. Solidarity between states and solidarities with those who are most affected by the crisis. So we have a focus on special needs also from the young people by addressing them actively in a way that is appropriate and need-based. Thank you.
Thank you very much. What I take away from this segment about the impact of the pandemic on young people is that we definitely need to direct our attention to the voices and needs of young people. We need to reach out to them and engage them. We would like to now shed light on the positive actions of youth throughout this pandemic. While youth were often framed to either disrespect sanitary measures or even react to them violently, they were actually quite busy having a positive impact. We would like to ask you, Sata and Lusanda, on how youth made an exceptional contribution to society during COVID-19. Do you know about young people who took concrete actions? Maybe first Sata and then Lusanda.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of young people made and continue to contribute to the efforts and to respond to COVID-19. In different communities, young people are engaging, they are creating awareness, organizing humanitarian efforts to reach out to those that are in need. And aside from just, creating opportunities and giving out to community, young people are demanding change at different levels. Young people are, confronting their government. Let's take, for example, in Liberia, in Nigeria, in Namibia and other countries where young people are not just sitting and allowing things to happen, but they are engaging. In Liberia, when the COVID-19 crisis started, there was a huge number of rape cases, because a lot of attention was being placed on how do we, effectively respond to COVID-19 and get the health system working and everything. Less efforts was being placed on reporting sexual abuse cases or keeping the one-stop centers working, keeping the Ministry of Gender, Children, and Social Protection, all these services that continue to help to, fight against sexual gender-based violence. And so when less attention was being placed, we had all the number of rape cases coming in and everything. And so the young people of Liberia were like, no, enough is enough. We need attention. And our thing was we wanted the Liberian president to address social gender-based violence the same way we were, addressing COVID-19, because there was this whole thing going on with not just rape but domestic violence. Women were being abused with acid and different things. It was high and on the increase. And so we started protesting safely. We wore masks and we gathered resources both online and in person
We demanded the president until rape was declared as a national crisis. I'm just saying this to say that even though this crisis has presented us a lot of challenges, young people have, come out of it, and they continue to engage. They are resilient. They are engaging the system and creating opportunities and demanding change and demanding for justice and accountability and protection of human rights, and which is very important. Just that effort and everything. And it's not, and I'm sure it's not just in Liberia. Everyone here have, success stories from their countries on how young people are engaging locally and creating awareness and just everything. So it's powerful to see all the work that young people are doing and how capable we are, of creating exceptional opportunities and contributing to making sure that young people are influencing different decisions, and even in politics. Like, I'm sure everyone here followed the Ugandan election and everything, how the young people, take power and did amazing things. So yeah, young people are doing great, and we are doing this all we can, because we know that we are not the future, we are the present. We are here to demand change and to be the leaders that we are.
Thank you, Sata.
Luzanda, what are you doing in
No, continue, Paul.
Sorry, I was just giving the floor to Luzanda. What are you doing in the present?
Yeah, I mean, I think the ambassador mentions that the power that we as young people have is the power of agency. Even during the full lockdown in South Africa, for example, as soon as an organization is starting to get the rape cases and gender-based violence, we took to counseling through WhatsApp. Phoning people, using the what we have. I think as young people, we don't fear using what we have and making it work. And also even tomorrow, like I think that this really is our time now, in the sense that we are more agile and be able to be responsive to the virus, even from a physiological perspective. And so we are entering homes, of course, following all the restrictions. But the point is that we have to be on the ground. People are needing food. People are needing counseling. People are needing interventions that require us to be on the front lines. And I think as young people, we have been the ones who have the agency and the ability to be able to do so fearlessly. And so for me, that has been the amazing privilege. I can just tell you countless of situations of where as an organization, we're going out into the ground, we're appealing to people for different resources and are taking the ball to our own court and saying we're going to be on the ground and provide people what they need right now.
This is fantastic to hear. Thank you, Sata and Luzanda. We couldn't possibly agree with you more. We are the present and we will make the future, and we definitely are fearlessly. We have indeed heard many stories of young first responders too, stories of young people who have been engaged in supporting elderly people and preventing the spread of misinformation. And actually, all of this just shows that young people are making a big difference. And that is exactly the reason why we would like to continue to the third segment of this event. And that is why we would like to think about the steps towards achieving meaningful youth participation. And we believe that this has to do with trust in young people's agencies. And Sabrina, you're active in the Lima Youth Council. Do you think youth are capable of participating in political processes and thereby make a difference?
Thank you, Manal. Yes, definitely. Young people are fully capable of participating in political process, not only as authorities or formal positions. We can participate doing activism or research too. Life is political. However, we need to rethink how we can remove barriers that already exist to involve young people in political processes. In this sense, the Lima Youth Council is a representative and autonomous space of the organized youth of Lima. In this space, we all voluntarily participate to carry out advocacy and awareness action in youth matters. We organize ourselves through a board of directors, which I'm currently part of, and we have thematic work commissions. Currently, 35 youth organizations are part of the council. The diversity of council members make the space and the initiatives more profitable. From my part, am I always aware that the actions have right and gender approach. Since 2019, we have been working with the municipality of Lima on the construction and executions of the Metropolitan Youth Strategy. We are trying that the district municipalities can generate adequate services for youth according to prioritized needs by territories and themes such as education, employability, mental and sexual health, violence prevention, culture, and participation. At this moment, we are trying to articulate with more allies to reach more young people. We make a difference because we are young volunteers who organize ourselves and create a space from youth for youth. We are a link between the young population and formal space of the state. We diversify our actions to reach more people, and we try to be a space that provides more opportunities for youth organizations to expand their action and partnerships. We work day by day promoting the creation of district councils where young people who live in a specific area can interact with their specific authorities, and they listen to them and involve them in processes associated with youth. Soon, we will launch a youth observatory in which the reality of young Peruvians can be known. Thank you.
Thank you, Sabrina. Thank you for your perspective. Well, we as youth delegates were wondering too. We were wondering whether we actually need more youth participation, and the results of our survey show the following. Well, as you can see, if then was meaningful youth participation, not even half of our participants are in any way satisfied with the way they were politically included. At least 80% see significant room for improvement.
Trida, we would like to ask you, would you say that this is a direct call for action in order to boost youth participation? And if so, what do you believe are potential ways of better including young people? Petrida, you may have the floor.
Thank you so much, Paul. So ideally, the survey results are not quite alarming because that's the reality in real sense that has happened since the pandemic period. Young people have been left behind in very many platforms and very many roles due to their limit to participate in those platforms. Even sometimes in different online sessions, they still do not have access to actually directly engage because they don't have certain roles that they are expected to be having. But however, I think we have had a lot of somewhat engagement of youth showcasing what they can actually do. So actually, since the pandemic period up to now, young people are the one leading change. They're the ones actually doing online convenings. They're the ones who are tech savvies. So young people are actually taking lead of the new normal, and mostly different institutions and entities do rely on the youth skill set to actually keep the wheel moving in terms of driving different societal changes within their communities. So I think it's a matter of really how do we twist the numbers and ensure that we have more youth participations in different meetings, even in different online platforms. Yes, we do have a number of young people who do not have access to internet, availability to actually engage in such platforms, but we do have young people who do have access but still are sidelined. So how do we actually remove that whole barrier where young people are not totally included, even for those who have accessibility to internet access? So I think it's high time we actually revisit the youth engagement topic in general. How are we directly engaging young people in different settings, in different meetings, in different platforms where we actually know the youth have the power and the voice to drive the agenda and bring about positive changes within our societies. Thank you.
So it's really about how do we reduce limitations to directly engage young people. Let's have a look at how young people would like to participate. we asked youth which forms of youth participation they prefer. And what we can see is that first and foremost, they ask for younger political representatives and occasional youth conferences, but also regular roundtable discussions and dialogues with opportunities, dialogue opportunities with local politicians, so to make their voices heard. Ms. Bunchus, we would like to turn to you and ask you that we could see young people have plenty of ideas how to improve youth participation. There are multiple ways forward. What does the German Youth Ministry maybe already do in order to include youth perspectives, and what should governments around the world undertake to improve youth participation?
Thank you, Paul, for your question. Our opinion is that the situation of young people must play an important role in the fight against the pandemic and beyond. Of course, it's our opinion. We are the Ministry for Youth. Young people are not the most affected group on the coronavirus pandemic in terms of health, but they are especially impacted by the economic, social, and mental consequences of this pandemic. The past few months have been stressful for young people. The concerns of young people who are in the interface between school, vocational training, university, or work are particularly acute. The longer the pandemic lasts, the more anxious and worried they become about their own future. Many experience lone lives and miss their social life. We have a survey where over 60% from the young people tell us that they do feel lonely and they suffer under the pandemic. It is particularly severe where one-time life events, such as graduation or the 18th birthday or a semester abroad, have to be celebrated under these circumstances. And many of these events will not come twice in the life. So young people also have to deal with uncertain future prospects just before or at the beginning of their working lives. The concerns of young people who find themselves at the transition between school, vocational training, university, or work are really serious. So we have to be aware of what is in store for young people and who are just graduation or completing their education. In addition, the huge financial investments that are necessary to combat the economic and social consequences will have to be carried to a large extent by the young generation. As a Federal Ministry of Youth, we have already accomplished a lot in this regard. The federal government's youth strategy is called A Policy for, with, and by young people. Of course, we try to involve as many young people as much as possible. The youth participation is the key for making a good youth policy.
Thank you, Ms. Oh, would you like to continue?
May I point out 2 examples?
Please.
Maybe you know that Germany was the president of the Council of the European Union in the second half year of 2020. And we participate young people in the Council conclusions of youth and democracy. We made sure that the voices of young people are heard in the policy-making process in the European Union. And with the European Youth Work Agenda, we have created a framework to promote the wide range of activities of young people in all areas of our society. Or maybe another example, this is very new. We are currently launching something we did not have until now. We call it the youth budget. With the youth budget, young people can develop and implement their own projects, and they can decide which project will be supported. But nevertheless, we are convinced that we should also take this crisis as a fundamental opportunity to shape social change together with the young generation. Therefore, it is about time we listen even more to them. In this month, my minister, Franziska Giffey, will invite 100 young people, their interest groups and civil society actors to a youth hearing on the topic of youth, Corona and the consequence. We would like to hear from the young generation what is on their mind. To conclude, we are already doing a lot, fostering and strengthening youth participation, but we still aim to increase our efforts.
Thank you very much. So financing could be one key. What do you think, Sabrina, is important to ensure meaningful youth participation?
Thank you, Paul. From my point of view, to ensure the participation of young people, we have to know them, know how many they are, where they are, and we have to realize the diversity of young people that exists, for not only include the same people. Instead of that, we can involve more diversity like LGBTQ plus community, Afro-American youth, indigenous people, youth with disabilities, all the possibility variety. It is necessary that the state and the organizations that want to reach the youth change their communication strategies. They need to listen more to the youth and based on their direct needs, make better proposals, not only focus on what the office think we need as a young people. It's necessary to raise awareness that not all young people have the same income needs and internet access. The state should be able to guarantee basic needs at least. In addition to this, to improve participation, it's necessary to break the stigmas associated with youth, break with adult centrism, and it's necessary to ensure that exist youth quotas in participatory processes and not only remains on paper. It's also necessary to strengthen exist space for youth participation, allocate budget, assistance, and all possible support so that the actions that they already carrying out. Thus, the voices of young people will be more listened. If we are aware that there are countries like Peru that still struggle with this, we must appeal to international solidarity to provide support to these young people who need us. It's also possible to generate specific learning communities on youth participation to reflect, learn, and generate new proposals on how to make the participation of young people like us more meaningful. Thank you.
Thank you, Sabrina. We agree governments should change their strategies. And coming back to you, Lizanda, which governmental support is needed to best empower young people more? And maybe more specifically, what would help your own organization to reach out to empower even more young people?
Well, it depends if, young people want to be part of governmental support to begin with. I think it depends if you're in a situation where government is willing to support you, with the resources, the ability to be on the table. But I love how we started this conference, that, have a multi-dimensional approach, which is being on the table and also creating your own table. And I think that's the most important message for me as the young people, that whilst we are still waiting for those doors to open, like Uganda is actually a beautiful example of Bobby Wine. The door is closed for now, but the point is that he still has access on the ground, right? We can still congregate, we can still make actions on the ground, we can still bring things, make things happen on the ground. So that's my message, is to say, where your government is not supporting you, where you're not getting the resources, where you're not being heard, do not be afraid to start your own table and make things happen.
Thank you, Lizanda. Thank you for your perspective. Sata, as a SCG young leader, what would you advise policymakers to meaningfully include youth in their decision making?
I think the important thing is to ask young people what is it they want. You can do anything for young people without young people. I'm sure everyone on this call have heard that statement before. And just creating more opportunity for young people to engage, more educational opportunity, and continue to just involve young people, because I know that a lot of time we talk about young people participation, and a lot of the people that are representing young people are not necessarily, very young. And then when you hear some of them, especially for where I come from, and these are the people, are making decisions for young people in closed doors, and in areas that are very hard to reach for some other young people. So we got to get young people involved from different sectors. Human rights, young people with disability, young people in sports and everywhere. It's time that we continue to ask young people, and that's just children's participation is important. I think we somehow shouldn't just include young people when it comes to just implementing the program. We should go even at the planning stage of the program. If you are trying to develop something about young people, or you want to get more young people involved, ask the young people, what is it you want in your community? How can we change this on different levels, in parliament, in the health sector? We need young people. We need more young people to be involved. So my answer to your question is, we need to ask young people, because in everywhere, like all the places we come from, there are different issues, and young people have different approaches to some of these issues. The way I might want to approach something from as a Liberian might be different, but it's somehow similar, but it might be different for someone who's from Europe and stuff like that, because right now we just have like limited number of young people in the Liberian parliament. And so someone from Europe might say, oh, we want social thing, or someone from Uganda, for example, those similar to Liberia. But I mean, I just feel we need to ask young people more, get engaged, and continue, policy makers should stop taking young people as troublemakers every time we speak out or protest. Or I'm sure I'm not the only person who have to go through this every time you say truth or speak truth to power, and then you have people not considering what you said, but they are targeting you because of what you are doing, like speaking out and everything. And I think it needs to stop, because we are all partners in progress who want good for the state and everything. So yeah, that's what I think.
And I think Sada, that is very true for young people all over the world. We face these same challenges. I admit honestly that this has so far been the best panel I've ever listened to. I don't know if that's up to the fact, to what Lusanda pointed out, that in fact for this event, young people, namely UN youth delegates, designed this table. And it is at this point as well that I would like to just point out that coincidentally, we have a female panel only today, and I've been enjoying it a lot. Last but not least, we would like to turn to you, Petrida. So far, the UN or the EU, they don't have a youth advisory council. Is the African Union Youth Advisory Council a suitable format for meaningful youth participation, which other organizations, such as the UN or EU, but even maybe single countries, could copy, so as to ensure political inclusion of young people?
Thank you, Paul, and this has been a really great discussion. I do actually just to reiterate on your point, is that I think UN agencies and EUs need to have a youth advisory council, not an African Union Youth Advisory Council per se, but a youth advisory council at some point. So whether it's in different departments, within a specific thematic focuses, it can be on peace and security, health issues, climate change, or any particular issue, or in general as a whole, I think it's something very, very important. And not only UN and EU agencies, but also other institutions that are working towards youth engagements and youth inclusion within their programs, because as the role that we have also as an African Union Youth Advisory Council is not only to advise the chairperson of the African Union Commission through the office, through the AU Youth Envoy herself, but also to engage as liaisons with other youth within the region. So within the 5 regions of Africa: East, West, North, Central, and the Sahrawi and Maghreb region. So it's that division that we have, whereby we can be a linkage to young people from grassroots level to the African Union, that brings it easier for other young people to actually engage and access information. And if a similar kind of initiative can be done for the UN or the EU, it will be something that will be helpful to actually bridge the gap of youth engagement, but also help accelerate the flow of information from the UN or EU to the other young people who do not have that particular information at ease of access to them. As one of my panelists mentioned, that internet access and access to information is still a challenge. So I think the advisory boards have a really huge contribution to make within different intergovernmental organizations or different institutions. And actually they help kind of disrupt and bring that change within the different institutions in place, because young people are available, young people are committed within their time, efforts, and are at the forefront to actually drive change within the communities.
Thank you very much, Petrida. If I may just jump in here again, and we are now opening questions or taking questions from the audience. And there has been a question that I would like to ask you, since you have been kind of recommending what other regions of the world could do to better improve or include young people. And there's been one specific suggestion from Arto, who is actually a youth delegate himself, and he asked that back in 2018 at the European Youth event, 1 out of 100 proposed ideas was to launch an annual Q&A between EU leaders and young people. Do you think that would be feasible to make it real, like to make that a reality? And do you think that would actually contribute to mainstreaming a youth perspective into decision making?
Actually, that's a very, very good question, because there is a model that is the same, that is done in Rwanda, whereby the president has a seat on the couch with the young people from Rwanda. So I think it's something that is feasible, whereby young people can come together. It's all about how best young people can actually put these recommendations into action. So how do we take self-initiatives and hold ourselves accountable to ensure that the recommendations are actually put into action? It can be a small number of young people that can come together and follow up on the different recommendations with the leaders in mention, but also looking at a buy-in from which leader in particular, so as it can act as an entry point to actually put the recommendation to be operational.
Thank you, Ms. Petrider. I think that's a full answer to his question. We also got another question, and this one is for Ms. Punces. It states, how does youth budget approach differ from the Erasmus Plus project?
The youth budget is a project from our ministry, from the federal government. It is not convinced with the Erasmus Plus.
Okay. Thank you for your answer. I hope it answers your question, Arthur. And before this side event already comes to an end, we would like to invite all panelists to share one specific recommendation on what you would want to change to improve youth participation.
Manal, maybe, sorry to interrupt you. Maybe we can also take Esma, because I see that she's raising her hand for a very last question to the panelists. Of course,
yes, we can.
Sorry to interrupt.
No, it's all right.
Esma, please go ahead.
Yes, so essentially I just wanted to ask what I have, let's say, put in the chat, but it is that how to deal with and what is the good recipe of youth participation when there is this really fast institutional turnover, when the focal points that are responsible for youth change too fast. So, for example, here in Georgia, since 2015, when I started participating in this youth delegate contest, the youth delegate program coordinating entity changed like 4 times. So what it says is that the institutional memory is really being lost in these efforts. A lot of also international donor money is being put, a lot of human resource in this reform, and then you have to do all of these administrative rearrangements, legal rearrangements again and again. I'm wondering how can, for example, international donors encourage to keep this institutional memory and to keep these institutions that were, let's say, were established for at least a little while. Thank you very much.
Maybe we can address that question to Ms. Bunches as she's coming from the ministry. So if you have a focal point on youth or the people working on youth in your ministry, how can you assure that there's kind of an institutional memory or that young people have the same focal point they can address to so as to better coordinate the efforts of young people? I think this is what Esma would like to know.
Yeah, thank you very much. I'm not really sure if I understood the point. I'm asking if it is a structural program, a problem, or is it something we can, where we can work as the federal ministry with. I think we should stay in contact to discuss this problem in a bilateral way. So let's make an appointment and then we can discuss it.
I think that's fine with you too, Esma.
Sure.
Great, thank you for your question.
Thank you.
Well, like I stated, this side event sadly is almost done, and we would still like to invite all panelists to share a specific recommendation on how they are from today going to try to change youth participation. And I'm going to start with Ms. Bunces, please.
Thank you very much. First of all, I would like to congratulate and thank you for organization this important event. It's really very great. It's a pleasure for me to be here with you. And we have an important discussion in our panel with everybody and also some important input and questions in the chat. We can see it. And of course, we will take it with us and you will get some answers. Yes, and what will we take from this panel? To see again how young people are expert in their own and how important it is to hear what they say. And I think we have to make more events like this. We have to fund more conferences from young people, where can they make sure what is important for themselves, what are the answers they will give us. And I think we have to organize more direct contacts from young people with policy decision makers. And I think that is something what is worldwide.
Thank you.
It's a very, very pleasure. Thank you, all of you, for the discussion.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Ms. Bunches. Sabrina, what is one recommendation you are going to take with you after this side event?
Thank you, Manal. Thank you for the opportunity to share with you. I believe that we need to convince the authorities that opening the doors of their office to young people means guarantee their rights as well. As young people, we need to know that there are certain space for participation to be able to get more involved. We need this space to be friendly, respect, and consider us not only in consultation processes, but from the making of proposals.
Thank you, Sabrina. Thank you. Ms. Lizanda, we move on to you.
First, I want to say congratulations, Manal and the team, for this beautiful event. And thank you so much for the opportunity. I really, really love Esma's question because it fills into my last comment, that don't just rely on institutions to be the drivers of change, because often the wheels turn too slowly. And often you do need a young person like the Prime Minister of Finland now to be on the table, to be the leader to drive that change. But to say to young people that that's not where the limitation of change, it's not where the buck stops. Make the difference within your localized place and collaborate. I was also a part of the Africa Youth Front, and to be able to see the power of young people coming together from the points where they are. And I think at this point, young people really are there. They want to collaborate. Take that agency and run with it.
Thank you, Lusanda. Thank you. I can see Ms. Boone just totally agrees. We're moving on to Ms. Sata.
First, I'm just going to say sorry to everyone that I had to change my background and I'm wearing masks. This is just one of the restrictions that young people have, and I'm on campus and doing this conversation, which is but I think, like I said in one of my statements, we have to continue to ask young people if there's one thing I can do to change or contribute to youth participation. It would be continue to include more young people from different backgrounds. We need to hear from young people and continue to highlight the work that young people are doing, around the world, from climate change to, fighting for human rights and holding our governments accountable. We need to include more young people in political spaces that young people, are not, included in. And it starts with consulting with young people. It starts with hearing the issues that are affecting young people and confronting these issues. And going at those days when we just call young people when we're having programs and stuff, like I said earlier, it's time that we include young people from the planning to the implementation and continue to ask young people how we can make the world a better place. Because at the end of the day, who's going to inherit it all? And let's not forget about children's participation. I think is the key. If all of us didn't participate somehow when we were young in, different programs and stuff, we wouldn't be at this level. So like the country, like if any policy maker is here, I think it's time to invest in the children's parliament or the children's forum, like a mentorship program for more meaningful children's and youth participation.
Thank you, Sata. Thank you. We're moving to the last speaker of today, Ms. Patricia Powell. Would still want to ask you again, what is one specific recommendation and what you would want to change youth improvement, youth participation?
Thank you so much, Manal. I think my recommendation lies within what Ms. Bunsu had already mentioned earlier. It was quite interesting to hear that they're establishing a youth fund, and this is something really, really important. So as a recommendation is for all institutions, all agencies to also actually have a youth fund in place for young people. So as the youth initiatives can also help be sustainable, because majority of the youth work is mostly one-off, and they actually change and adapt based on what a donor or a partner needs. So I'll really, really like to cement this more, that a youth fund will be something that will help young people in order to change. My recommendation will be, I think it's high time young people also become accountable of their own recommendations. So that will be my change part of recommendation.
Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Petradio. Thank you. On behalf of all other youth delegates.
Mana, maybe at this point it would be a good idea to also give the floor one last time to Ambassador of the EU delegation, to maybe also share with us what he takes away from this event. Just maybe a very short summary of what do you take with this from me? What are you going to share with all your colleagues in New York?
Hi guys, thanks for giving me the floor. I'll be very brief, and I don't want to summarize what you've been saying, but Just one thing, to those who live in the EU, I think you need to make your voice heard. And there is a way of doing it. Find out who is the member of the European Parliament that represents you. Write to him or to her. Make sure that they really bring your voice to the European Parliament, and put pressure also on the EU, the European Commission and other institutions to give you a place, to give you a role, to give you a voice. You know, one thing that I still haven't understood is why the European Union does not have an EU envoy. You know, we don't have a youth envoy. The UN has one, other countries have one, some of the EU member states have one, the EU does not have it. I know it's a symbolic thing, but it becomes, you know, a face. It becomes, you know, somebody who sits in meeting and reminds people that, you know, there is a role for you to play, and that role has to be respected. And for those who live outside the EU, I see guys from Peru, from Ukraine, from Africa. We have missions, we have delegations, we call them, you know, embassies all over the world. Go right to these guys. They should also listen to you when they decide, they negotiate with your government what kind of programs the EU should engage in, what kind of, you know, funding the EU should give to your governments. Ask for that, you know, demand it. I think it's your right, and it's time that you really call for it. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you for the suggestion also, Paul, and thank you for the words. On behalf of all other youth delegates, we would like to thank everyone for contributing to the success of this event, and we hope you have a very nice day.
Thank you all very much for joining. Goodbye.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Have a good rest of the day.
Thank you.